Hey everybody, Marcus Crawford here with the Idaho Quadcopter channel. A shout out to drone enthusiasts everywhere. And hey, so today we're going to talk a little bit about the Mavic Mini and how to avoid flyaways. But first, I've got a little confession to make. I made the introduction to this video yesterday when I was out in the field, but unfortunately I got back and it was all out of focus. So we're starting over doing it here from my office, but I do have all the flight footage from yesterday, so we'll have all that, and we'll have the screen recording from my iPhone as well, and we can look that over. But what we want to talk about in this video is how to avoid losing your drone, and that can cover a number of different things. It can cover wind, and the Mavic Mini is particularly susceptible to that. I personally had a close call with it, and I know other very experienced flyers have almost lost their drones to being blown away in the wind. Like I said, the Mavic Mini is particularly susceptible to that. And then the other things that can happen is, you want to make sure you have a good compass calibration on your drone. You want to make sure that you're flying within the temperature parameters that DJI specifies for the drone. Too cold, too hot can cause some issues. And then you want to make sure that you're paying attention to the drone parameters itself, the optical flow sensors, and operating it in a way that they can work how they're supposed to work and not cause problems for you. A number of other things play into this. So let's start out before you ever even get out to the field. You want to make sure that your battery levels are fully charged. Make sure that your phone is fully charged. Make sure that the battery level in your drone is where it should be. Your remote control is fully charged. The worst thing that can happen to you is, your phone dies in the middle of a flight, or your remote control dies in the middle of the flight. And obviously the drone itself, you want to make sure you have enough battery power to get back from wherever it is that you flew to. So a lot of things that play into that. But then the other thing, I'm going to pick up my iPhone here and see if I can bring them up. A couple of things before you ever even start. You want to look at the Before You Fly app, and I'll throw that up on the screen here, and make sure that you're legal to fly wherever you're at. And then also I use a program called UAV Forecast to tell me what the wind is going to be on any given day, and I'll throw that picture up here as well. When I brought it up yesterday when I was out at Heroes Park, it said not good to fly because it wasn't finding enough satellites. There were plenty of satellites. As soon as I took the drone off, it found way more than the UAV Forecast app did. But the main thing is you can look at your temperature and you can look at the wind conditions, and there's also a page on there that will tell you wind conditions at altitude as well. So that's important, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So the parameters of the little Mavic Mini. So you need to know some basic things about it, and the fact one of the things is that it does use optical flow sensors on the bottom to tell it how high it is off the ground and if it's moving forward or backward off the ground. When they say optical flow, it's looking for that movement on the ground. And now that can be affected by a number of things, reflective surfaces. So let's talk a little bit about that. So the operating range for these sensors is between 0.5 meter and 10 meters. So in other words, when it's more than 10 meters off the ground, they really don't have any effect on the drone or much at all. That's what DJI says, operating range between 0.5 meter and 10 meters. And then they also have to have adequate light. So if you're flying at night, they're not going to work like they should. It has to have at least 15 lux of light. And the other thing that they say is it has to have a discernible non-reflective surface that it's flying over. And so that's why they warn you often about flying over water. And you'll see in the video, we show a little of that. I took it and flew it over a pond, and just to kind of give you an example of what they're talking about there. And then, obviously, before you take off, magnetic interference. If the drone asks you to do a compass calibration, you really should do it. And the other thing that you could consider is if it's a place that you've been before, move away from whatever heavy metal objects are in that area. Now, I'm going to be straight with you. I have never had much of a problem in that regard. I have flown, gosh, off of picnic tables and other things that had metal legs on them and so forth, and never really had too much of an issue, but I know it happens, so it's something that you should pay attention to. And we'll talk about it a little more in the flight, but if you see the drone circling a little bit, that's a sign of the compass needing a calibration. If you see that, land, calibrate your compass, and start over again. The neat thing about DJI is, boy, they're really good, and it's not often that that happens with a DJI drone. It'll tell you when it needs a calibration. Now, you also need to pay attention to the temperature outside. So, I've personally experienced in cold conditions, parameters less than what this drone is designed to fly in, that has caused issues. So what they're saying, the temperature operating range of this is from 0 to 40 degrees centigrade. In Fahrenheit, that's 32 to 104. Now, in colder temperatures, it hasn't happened to me, but I've seen other mini flyers, they've had situations where the drone descends and almost hits the ground. And then I personally have experienced a little bit of gimbal shake. I flew a couple of times just below the parameters at about 30 degrees, and DJI is saying 32 is the minimum, and I noticed a very minute gimbal shake in the footage when I was done. Those little motors in that gimbal, you know, they're fairly sensitive, and evidently they couldn't cope with that. So you're going to want to pay attention to temperature, and then conversely, high temperature, if you're over 104 degrees Fahrenheit outside, I don't know why you're going to want to be standing out there anyway, but understand that that's going to be very detrimental to the electronics inside your drone. It just simply causes more resistance in the electronics, creates even more heat, and electronics does not like heat. So that's something that you should pay attention to. And you know, there's potential there that you could lose your drone, have a flyaway, or have the drone have some other kind of an issue with an ESC or something like that. So you just want to keep that in mind. Now, I want to kind of put this in context because many of us are used to flying more expensive DJI products. I personally fly a Mavic 2 Zoom. It has a little more leeway there. I know it's got fans in it and stuff, although DJI has the same high temperature range for it at 104 degrees or 40 degrees centigrade, but it's good for a lower temperature. The Mavic 2 will go down to minus 10 degrees centigrade, or which would be 14 degrees Fahrenheit. So things to keep in mind, you know, not just the Mavic Mini, but I think some of those reasons are the reasons that some more experienced drone flyers can get into trouble with this thing is because they're used to flying maybe a more robust product like a Mavic 2. So anyway, it's all just worth talking about. So pay attention to the temperature, and understand also that the higher you go, often it's going to get colder up there too. So you're going to want to keep that in mind. Then the big one that has caught probably more people than anything is this little guy is not the best drone for windy conditions. Now, DJI says that it has a max wind resistance of 18 miles an hour. And to put that into context, the Mavic 2 has a max wind resistance of 38 miles an hour. So big difference there. This guy just is not going to handle the wind like your Mavic or there's a lot of more powerful drones out there. The FIMI X8 SE, I think even the Hubsan Zeno probably would. It's not great in the wind, but it could probably handle it a little better than this guy. So some of the things that play into that is this thing has a max pitch, how far it'll tilt forward, of 30 degrees in sport mode, and then if you're in P mode or C mode, that's only 20 degrees. So it just can't pitch the drone that far that it can get that forward motion. Now, also, again, to put that into context, your Mavic 2 is that pitch ratio is 35 degrees in sport mode and 25 degrees in P mode. Now, the other thing is, these little motors on this thing, they just are not going to be able to generate the power that you can with a Mavic 2 or a FIMI or a Phantom, or those kind of drones that have more powerful motors on them. So you just need to understand that you can get this thing in a situation where it can literally get blown backwards in the wind. Let's see. So, we're also going to talk about if you get into trouble, look for a good spot to land, and then how to find your drone after you land. And I demonstrate that in the video here. So yeah, I guess that's about it. We'll just go to the flight video from here. And the day that I was out there, it was not a terribly windy day. In fact, the UAV forecast app said 4-mile-an-hour winds. I'm telling you, it was dead calm. It wasn't even that. And I had my anemometer with me, and I'm glad I remembered that. An anemometer is not a bad thing to have. That just measures the wind speed. So it's one thing to look at the app. It's another thing to be able to actually measure it. And also, this thing is handy for measuring the direction that the wind is coming from as well. And so these things are fairly cheap. I recommend that you pick one up. But all of that said, let's get to that flight video, and we'll go into more detail there. Okay, I'm going to fire up the DJI Fly app, and let's see if it asks us to
home point has been updated.
And
Please check it on
it
the
took us
map.
right into the main page on in the app. I can go back to the other page, and it tells me that I'm in a warning zone. And what that is I am in a height restricted zone, height restricted 400 feet where I'm at, which is the FAA norm anyway. So anyway, we're going to go into Go Fly, and it is not asking me to calibrate the compass. Now, we can tell that. I can click where it says takeoff permitted, and it takes me to a pre-flight check that it says normal. And there again, this is something else that you should look at before you take off, and that is that your return to home height is set where you want it. I set mine to 60 meters. I like that drone way up in the air to make sure that it's not going to fly into anything. This drone does not have any kind of obstacle avoidance. It's going to go it would fly right into a tree if there's a tree in between it and its home point. And max altitude, max legal, is 120 meters. That's just short of 400 feet. You could probably go 121 meters, something like that. But 400 feet is in the U.S. is it. And then I've got max distance set at 300 meters, which is 3 kilometers. I can't imagine ever wanting to fly this drone that far, but I've got it set so it will if I want to. And then further down there, you can format your card, which is a good idea. We'll format, and that way you know that everything on there, you're going to get everything recorded, and you have your full card available to record video to. And if I click on, go back into, go back into the menu, and I click on the 3 dots up in the top there, I can, under safety here, you get that same information. It says IMU is normal, and you could calibrate that if for some reason you thought your IMU was not, the drone was acting funny, you could calibrate it. And you need a flat surface to do that on, and that's a little bit more involved. Compass calibration, it is telling me the compass is normal, but if you are in doubt, you can click calibrate there and calibrate your drone. We don't need to do that right now because it's telling me that it's fine. And on this safety thing, you can also see where this is where you can unlock a geozone, etc. But we're not going to get into that right now. The other thing that I would tell you before you take off is check your battery. So I'm at 90% on the drone. You see that up in the top right-hand corner. I checked my remote. It had 4 lights on it before I took off. And my phone, I'm about 3/4 full battery on the phone, so I'm good to go there. But those are all things that are easy to miss, and you want to make sure you check them before you take off if you got out there. The other thing is make sure that you've got a solid number of satellites, and this is telling us, there again at the top right, little pictograph of a satellite. It's telling us right now that we've got 16. It went up to 17 there a couple times. Anyway, let's just go ahead and take off now. I'm going to put it into video mode. Whoop, I took a picture there, sorry. Yeah, we're going to go into video mode, and we're shooting at 2.7K, 30 frames per second. We're going to start video, and we're going to go ahead and take off, and you can see that from here. So
take off. The home point has been updated. Please check it on the map.
So what you're going to want to look at when your drone first takes off, and let's bring it in a little closer here to the camera. So the drone, if it were making circles, if it were making little circles, that is an indication that the compass calibration is not what it should be. And if you see that, you're going to want to land the drone and calibrate the compass. But in this case, it looks good. I guess the other thing that I can tell you is you can look to see if there is any big metal objects around you. I've got kind of a partly metal picnic table here. And, you know, there's a picnic shelter here that has some metal on the roof. I've flown a lot of drones here before, and it's never caused me any problems. Another thing that we can demonstrate here is the downward-facing sensors on the drone that tell it where it's at on the ground. So if I put my hand under the drone here, and I'm not touching the controller at all, it'll rise because it doesn't want to go into the ground. So you saw the drone rose there. Now, if I was holding the stick down, I could drop it into my hand, but it rose because it detected something. So what those sensors do is they detect, it's called optical flow, and they also detect movement under the drone. So it not only tells the drone how close it is to the ground, it tells it if it's moving or not. And it's, according to the manual, that's only good for about from 1/2 meter to 10 meters up. When the drone is higher than that, it really doesn't, those sensors really don't come into play much. I don't know if the optical flow, when it's up higher, if it can detect movement or not. Maybe, I'm not sure. But I know for sure in the manual, it says between 1/2 meter and 10 meters up. So let's back it up here. We're going to do a manual droning. We're going to go reverse and up. So I'm out there with the drone. You know, we're about, according to this, we're about 14 meters high and about 83 meters distant. So what you want to keep in mind there when you're at distance, there again is wind, right? So you would want to fly into the wind. If there was a breeze here, I could I could demonstrate that for you, but there's just literally no wind. So we're not going to be able to demonstrate that today. But anyway, let's turn the drone around so it's not facing right into the sun. We'll get a little bit better video. There we go. We're not facing the sun. But when you are flying out, so we're going to go full tilt forward here in P mode. And you're going to see it go up to, I don't know, about, yeah, this is telling me signal interference. I guess I wasn't pointed right at it. So it'll go up to about 8 meters a second or so in P mode. We're not going to leave the park. We're going to stop right there. But the thing that you can do is if you are not sure, and I'm going to raise some height here. We got a guy out there doing some baseball practice, so we're going to get this thing further up in the air so that we're out of everybody's way. So we're up about 30 meters or so, and let's turn it around and head it back towards where I'm standing here. Just do a nice yaw here so you can see where we're at. Whoops, I overshot it there. There's the picnic shelter right there. So let me, I'm going to put it in sport mode. So if you are in a headwind and you're trying to bring the drone back to you and you're seeing that it's not, even in P mode, you can't get anywhere close to that 8 meters per second, it literally could push the drone backwards in high enough wind. So let me tell you, I wrote down the wind specs here. So the wind resistance on the Mini is 18 miles an hour or 8 meters per second. So if the wind is higher than 8 miles an hour or 8 meters per second or 18 miles an hour, what they're saying is the drone, that's the max that the drone can overcome. The thing that you might try, because it's going to give the motors a little more power, is sport mode. So up in the top left-hand corner, I can click on that mode and I put it into sport mode. And you'll see coming back to us, I'm going to go full forward. It's going to go a lot faster than the 8 meters per second that it flew on the way out there. So we're going to go full stick forward now. And you saw the drone tilt down there a little bit. And yeah, we're already up to about 11 meters per second. And we're going to go right over the top of us here. That's pretty cool. I'm watching the drone. It's moving along pretty good. That's faster what you think. And I let off the stick and it really put on the brakes. Okay, so let's turn around again. But what I'm telling you is that is a way to increase the power that you're putting to those ESCs and potentially get you back. So I'm going to fly out to the opposite corner of the park here. And we are full tilt forward, and it's moving right along. We're even faster now. We're almost at, we're over 11 meters per second. So, what's another thing you can do if you find yourself fighting a headwind? Well, let's turn around, and we'll bring the drone back to us. We're in sport mode right now. And let's say that we're coming back, and boy, we're even in sport mode, and boy, it's just barely moving. I'm going at about, 3 meters per second there, and I'm a little nervous because I'm running low on battery. What you can do is get closer to the ground, get your altitude down, and you can go forward and down at the same time, and that will increase your speed. And then often there's less wind at lower altitudes, so that can be a big help in getting the drone back to you. And the thing is, when you're in that kind of a situation, you can be kind of nervous, but I'm just telling you, don't panic. Just keep your cool and think about these things, and you'll get your drone back. So there's the drone right there. So, yeah, as far as flying in the wind, so you can use return to home, but return to home puts it into P mode, and it's going to go to that predetermined height that you set, and you may not want to do that. So my advice is to manually fly the drone back if you're in a headwind situation. The other thing that you're probably going to want to know how to do that. Let's get the drone back out of our way here so we don't have the noise of it. So at the bottom here, you've got your map. So you click on it once and we click on it again, and it brings, I can bring up the full map here. And as you can see, I can see the direction of the drone and I can see where the home point is. So you can just keep the drone, even if you're not exactly sure, you can't see it, you're not sure, you can keep the head of that drone pointed towards you and bring it home. So we'll kind of do that a little bit now, and you can see the distance as it gets closer here. Yeah, 5 meters, that's close enough. Yeah, it's up there. Okay, I'm gonna back it off here again. And we're already down to 54% battery. That is the next, I guess, piece of advice is I'm gonna give you is when you're flying out, if you know, you've got your anemometer, you know the direction of the wind, or you've looked on the UAV forecast app, you know the wind speed, you know what they say the direction is, you can feel the direction. When you're flying out, fly into the wind so that you know you have the wind at your back when you're coming home. And that may seem like an obvious thing, but I can tell you from experience, because I've gotten in trouble with it myself before. You're out there, you're flying, you're having a good time, and you're focused on whatever that is that you're trying to get some video of. You potentially could just forget yourself and fly out there with the wind at your back and have a problem getting home. So one of the things that they talk about here is that they warn you about with the Mini is that it has to have, and I'm going to read exactly what they say, it has to have discernible non-reflective surfaces for the optical flow to work. So, and one of the things they warn about is water. So we got a little pond over here. Let's fly over the top of that and see if we could kind of figure out what they're talking about. So you notice I'm gaining some altitude there. I'm not taking any chances, but I think we're kind of over the top of it now, and we can even see that on the app. I'm going to lower the camera so that we can see where we're at. And I have to tell you, I don't think there's a lot of there would be a lot of issue. This water I think is murky enough that you could see, but we're going to lower it down here and see if we can get to that point that it says. So we're within 10 meters of this water, and that's where it's telling you that that those optical flow sensors could have a problem. And I'm moving forward here, and it doesn't seem to be an issue. And I'm thinking that that this water, quite frankly, is such that there is enough discernible difference there. You can see through to the bottom of it. So I'm sure that those optical flow sensors can detect movement. So I'm sorry I'm not looking at the camera here. I'm looking down at the sensors. So anyway, I'm going to take a chance here. We're going to drop it down just a little bit more, and we'll move forward here. So anyway, what they're saying is just use common sense when you're flying over water. Like I said, let's look straight down again, and you can look at this water. This is just kind of it's a pond that the park system created, and they stock it with fish and stuff for kids to fish at in the summertime. And I'm sure that it's just dead water right now. The water that's in it is what's in it, but you can see a head gate right there that they feed water, irrigation water, into this. So anyway, that's kind of what they're talking about when they're talking about flying over water. You can see right now we're just a little over 5 meters, and the drone is pretty stable. Well, I see it's dropping 4.8. So it's pretty steady, right around 5 meters there. It's not moving around much. So let's punch straight up. We do not want to run into that flagpole. and full forward. One of the cool things about this drone now is that we don't get that motors overloaded warning that we were getting before. So I guess that reminds me of something else that I didn't say earlier when we were talking about wind, and I'm going to tell you to pay attention to those wind warnings. That's what caught me. If I'd have been paying attention to the wind warnings and paying attention to where I was flying into the wind, that I was flying with the wind behind me rather than flying into the wind, I wouldn't have had the problems that I had. So yeah, so there we are again. So the other thing that can happen is, let's say that you're out there. I'm going to go turn around here again, and we're going to go straight out. So you find yourself in a situation where you can't get your drone back to home and you need to land it. So what are you going to do? Well, you want to find a place, while you've still got enough battery to do it, and we're down to 28% battery now, you want to find a place that is clear and is a discernible maybe landmark or something that you can understand that, wow, I know that I'm going to land next to a white birch tree or something that you can recognize, or a fork in the road, or something that allows you to recognize where you landed the drone at. So in this case, I know that I'm let's just say that I'm just about out of battery here, and you know what? I am going to go ahead and land my drone because I don't want to lose it. I know that I don't have enough battery to get to my home point, so I'm just going to land it and then go out and find it. So let's drop the drone down. And I see I got a clear spot. Yeah, it's in the grass, but I'm going to pick up the gimbal before I land in the grass there. I don't want to interfere with the gimbal. And we're going to drop this baby down, and it's just going to land.
Landing.
Okay, so our drone is on the ground, and now our issue is going to find it. And so it could be a ways away from you. It could be into territory that you're not familiar with. There could be an obstacle in between you and the drone. So what you can do is you can go into Find My Drone in safety here. So I scroll down to the safety mode, and you want to land the drone while it's still got power so that you can recognize where the drone is at, so the drone can emit a signal and you can follow GPS to where the drone is. So we're gonna scroll in on the map here, and we can see where the drone is. So we're gonna walk forward here. I'm gonna be off camera here, but we'll record audio with the iPhone. And what I can do is walk directly. You can see I'm the dot on the screen. The drone is the little triangle, and I can walk directly to it. Now, as I get closer to the drone, if it's in brush or something like that, or tall grass, you may not be able to see it readily. I can see it right there, but you may not be able to see it. I can start it flashing and beeping. So hopefully you can hear that. The drone is flashing and beeping. So I'm going to stop that. I'm going to hold up the drone here. So I just went back into, I put the drone back into regular mode and minimized the map, and it's still recording. So I thought I'd pick it up and get a little recording there. You can see we actually are down to 20% battery. So yeah, that was successful. That's how you're going to find your drone if you have to do an emergency landing. Let me get everything shut down here real quick. Hey, so I hope you enjoyed that flight demonstration. You know, there wasn't enough wind to really demonstrate how the Mavic Mini acts in the wind. But if you get those wind warnings on your app, pay attention to them. Remember to fly into the wind when you're going out if it's windy, fly into the headwind. That way you have the wind at your back coming back, and you always know that you're gonna be able to get your drone back. Other than that, keep the thing close to you. If you can not go out so far, have it in a place where, even if it starts getting blown around, you can land it, and just use that kind of common sense and caution. The other thing that I wanted to reiterate is the speed of the drone. This little guy has a top speed in sport mode of 29 miles an hour or 13 meters per second. Now, as opposed to like a Mavic 2, and a lot of us are used to flying more powerful drones, it has a top speed of 45 miles an hour or 20 meters per second. So that's a big difference. So that's something that can get a more experienced flyer in trouble. You can be out there and think, oh, I'm not that far away. Well, it's further with this little guy. And that brings up battery. If you're flying out someplace, make sure that you got plenty of juice to get back. I wouldn't go much further than 65% battery before I turned around and came back, because what if a wind comes up? You don't think there's much of a wind that day. All of a sudden you're fighting a headwind coming back. So you want to make sure you have enough juice to do it. But gosh, I guess that's about it. We've probably covered about everything. I hope you found this useful. And hey, this is Marcus Crawford with the Idaho Quadcopter channel out. And if you like this kind of content, please subscribe to my channel. Most of all, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. And we will see you on the next one. Bye now. Little Mavic Mini, man. This drone is just more fun than a barrel full of monkeys.